The elevator cable snapped at 11:47 p.m. on December 23rd. Inside, Vivian Hale, CEO, millionaire, untouchable, was about to discover that all her power meant absolutely nothing in a steel box suspended 20 floors above concrete. The man who could save her? A maintenance worker she'd never noticed, bleeding from broken relay wires, making a choice no protocol manual would ever recommend. This is the story of one impossible rescue. Two people who shouldn't have met, and the moment everything they thought they knew about controls shattered in the dark. Before we begin, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The basement of the Meridian Tower smelled like burnt insulation and broken promises. Liam Carter stood in front of electrical panel C7, his work light casting harsh shadows across conduits that had been jury-rigged so many times they looked like surgical scars. His daughter's voice was still in his head from 20 minutes ago. "Daddy, you promised we'd watch the fireworks together." And here he was, 30 feet underground, staring at a problem that should have been fixed 3 weeks ago when he'd first submitted the work order. The VIP elevator. Of course it was the VIP elevator. He pulled the diagnostic sheet from his back pocket, the paper already wrinkled from being folded and unfolded too many times. November 28th. Initial fault detection. December 4th. Formal maintenance request submitted. December 11th. Request marked non-urgent by someone named Derek Paulson in facilities management who probably hadn't touched a circuit breaker in his entire corporate life. December 18th. Liam's second request, this one with actual voltage readings and thermal imaging that showed the relay heating 15 degrees above tolerance. December 19th. Request denied due to budget allocation timeline constraints. Liam had been working maintenance for 11 years, 4 in the military, 7 in civilian buildings, and he'd learned that budget allocation timeline constraints was corporate speak for "we don't give a damn until something explodes." The relay box hummed, not the steady hum of functional equipment, but the irregular buzzing of components deciding whether to keep working or give up entirely. Liam opened the panel. The main relay was visibly discolored, the insulation on 3 wires had started to crack, and someone, probably during the building's renovation 5 years ago, had bypassed 2 safety interlocks with jumper wires that weren't even the right gauge. "Jesus," he muttered. His radio crackled. "Carter, you still down there?" Marcus, the night security guard. Good guy, former cop, knew when to look the other way when Liam needed to work on things that weren't technically his responsibility. Liam keyed the radio. "Yeah, how's it looking upstairs?" "Packed. Rooftop parties in full swing. The penthouse private event just started, and I've got about 200 people in the main lobby waiting for the fireworks show. Buildings at capacity." "The VIP elevator still running?" Pause. "Far as I know, why?" Liam looked at the relay again. The housing was hot enough that he could feel it from 6 inches away. "Because it shouldn't be. You want me to take it offline?" "I want you to—" Liam stopped. Taking the elevator offline meant stranding whoever was currently using it, or preventing access to the penthouse levels where the building's wealthiest residents and most important guests were celebrating. It meant angry calls to management, which meant Derek Paulson or someone like him showing up to demand explanations, which meant paperwork and meetings and all the bureaucratic machinery that prevented actual work from getting done. But leaving it online meant gambling that the relay would hold for another few hours. Liam had never been good at gambling. "Yeah," he said. "Take it offline. I'm coming up." "Copy that." Liam grabbed his tool bag and headed for the stairs. The Meridian Tower was 43 stories of luxury apartments, corporate offices, and retail spaces, crowned by a restaurant and observation deck that had been featured in architecture magazines. It was the kind of building where the monthly maintenance fee for a single apartment was more than Liam's annual salary, the kind of place where residents complained if the lobby flowers weren't fresh enough. It was also the kind of building where management cut corners on things residents never saw. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his work boots echoing in the concrete stairwell. The building's main systems were on floor 37, in a mechanical room that most people didn't know existed. If he was going to shut down the VIP elevator properly, he needed to access the primary control panel, not just the relay in the basement. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah, his neighbor who was watching his daughter tonight. "Emma wants to know if you'll be back before the fireworks." Liam checked his watch. 11:52 p.m. The fireworks were scheduled for midnight. 37 floors up, shut down the elevator. 37 floors back down. Grab Emma from Sarah's apartment on the 3rd floor. Make it to the roof viewing area before midnight. Not happening. He texted back, "Tell her I'll try. If I miss it, we'll watch the recording together." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Sarah was typing something, deleting it, typing again. Finally, she'll understand Liam put the phone away. Emma was 7 years old. She'd been understanding about a lot of things lately, understanding when Daddy had to work late, understanding when Daddy couldn't make it to her school play, understanding when Daddy was too tired to read her extra bedtime stories because he'd pulled a double shift fixing things that should have been fixed by people paid 3 times his salary. She was 7. She shouldn't have to be that understanding. Floor 20. Floor 25. Liam's legs were burning now, his tool bag getting heavier with each flight. He'd been up since 5:30 this morning, had already replaced a broken water heater on floor 8 and repaired a jammed door lock on floor 15 before his official shift even started. The building never stopped breaking. It was like trying to hold together something that was actively trying to fall apart. Floor 30. Floor 32. His radio crackled again. "Carter, we've got a problem." Liam stopped on the landing between 32 and 33. "What kind of problem?" "The VIP elevator. Someone's in it." "I thought you were taking it offline." "I was about to, but it started moving before I could lock it out. Went from the lobby straight to 42. The penthouse level, where the most expensive apartments in the building shared space with the private event room that rented for $15,000 a night. "Who's in it?" Liam asked, already moving again, faster now. "Didn't see. Could be a resident. Could be someone from the party. You want me to—" The lights flickered. Not a quick flicker, but a slow, sinking fade, as if the entire building had taken a breath and decided not to let it out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the stairwell in dim red. Liam's radio hissed with static. "Marcus? You there?" More static, then power fluctuation, main grid showing. The transmission cut out. Liam didn't wait for it to come back. He ran. Floor 35. His tool bag slammed against his hip with each step, the tools inside rattling like bones. Floor 36. The emergency lighting was flickering now too, the backup system struggling with a load it hadn't been designed to handle. Floor 37. He hit the mechanical room door so hard it bounced off the wall. The control panel was mounted on the far side of the room, surrounded by the building's primary electrical systems, transformers, circuit breakers, distribution boards, all of it humming and buzzing and generating enough heat to make the air shimmer. The VIP elevator status light was red. Not the steady red of an offline system, but a flashing red that meant emergency stop, power failure, or catastrophic malfunction. Liam crossed to the panel in 4 strides and pulled up the diagnostic display. What he saw made his blood cold. The elevator was stopped between floors 39 and 40. Not at a floor, not at a maintenance position, but suspended in the shaft. The relay he'd been looking at in the basement had finally given up, but instead of failing safely, it had failed in a way that left the elevator's holding brake partially engaged and the motor control system completely offline. Whoever was in that elevator was trapped in a steel box with no power, no lights, and no communication. And according to the temperature sensors, the elevator's ventilation system had stopped working. "Damn it," Liam said, and then he said it again, louder, because sometimes you had to curse at the universe before you could figure out what to do next. His radio crackled back to life. "Carter, do you copy?" "Yeah, I copy. Marcus, listen to me. The VIP elevator is dead between 39 and 40. I need you to clear everyone away from the shaft doors on both floors, and I need you to call emergency services. Already on it. Fire department's on the way, but it's going to be at least 20 minutes. Everything's jammed up because of the holiday." 20 minutes. In a sealed elevator with no ventilation, depending on the size of the person and the available air volume, you had maybe 30 to 40 minutes before oxygen became a serious problem. Factor in panic, hyperventilation, or a pre-existing medical condition, and that timeline could collapse to nothing. Liam looked at the diagnostic panel again, then at the elevator shaft access door 10 feet away, then at his tool bag. He'd done confined space work in the military. He'd done vertical rescue training. He'd spent 2 years as a field mechanic on equipment that could kill you if you touched the wrong component. He knew the procedures, knew the protocols, knew all the reasons why one person working alone in an elevator shaft was a violation of about 15 different safety regulations. He also knew that 20 minutes was too long. His phone buzzed again. Sarah, fireworks starting soon. Emma's asking about you. Liam looked at the message for exactly 3 seconds. Then he opened the shaft access door, clipped his safety harness to the maintenance ladder, and started climbing. The shaft was dark except for the emergency lighting filtering through the door openings at each floor. Liam's headlamp cut a narrow beam through the darkness, illuminating cables, guide rails, and the accumulated grime of decades. The elevator was visible about 30 feet above him, suspended like a coffin. He climbed. The ladder rungs were cold under his hands, the metal slippery with condensation and old grease. His tool bag banged against his legs, throwing off his balance. Below him, the shaft dropped away into darkness. He didn't look down. 20 feet, 25. He could hear something now, a sound that didn't belong in the mechanical rhythm of the building. It took him a moment to identify it. Breathing. Fast, shallow breathing. Someone was hyperventilating. "Hey!" Liam shouted. "Can you hear me?" The breathing stopped. Then, after a pause, "Who's there?" A woman's voice, controlled, or trying to be, but with an edge that suggested the control was slipping. "My name's Liam. I'm building maintenance. I'm in the shaft right now, about 10 feet below you. Are you hurt?" No, I'm..." The voice cut off. When it came back, it was tighter. "I need you to get me out of here. Now. Working on it. What's your name?" "Does that matter?" "Helps to have someone to talk to." Silence. Then, "Vivian." Liam reached the bottom of the elevator car and secured his safety line to the elevator frame. He'd been right about the relay failure. The holding brake was partially engaged, which meant the elevator wasn't going to fall, but it also meant the car couldn't be moved without manually releasing the brake or restoring power to the motor control system. "Vivian, I need you to do something for me. There's an emergency panel inside the elevator, usually on the left side near the floor. Can you find it?" "It's dark. The lights went out." "There should be emergency lighting." There was. It failed. Of course it did. Because nothing in this building worked the way it was supposed to. "Okay," Liam said, keeping his voice steady. "Use your phone light. Find the panel. It'll have a small handle or a thumb latch. Inside there's a phone handset and some emergency switches. I need you to try the phone first." He heard movement, then a sharp intake of breath. The breathing was getting faster again. "Vivian, you still with me?" "I can't. I need you to..." Her voice was climbing in pitch, losing the controlled edge. "How long until you get me out?" Liam closed his eyes for a second. He'd heard that kind of panic before, usually in people who were trapped in places they couldn't escape. Claustrophobia, maybe, or just the normal human response to being sealed in a metal box with no light and no air circulation. "I'm going to get you out," he said, "but I need you to stay calm and help me. Can you do that?" "I'm trying." "I know. Keep breathing. Slow breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Find that emergency panel for me." He heard fumbling sounds. Then, "I found it. The phone's not working." "That's okay. There should be some switches. One of them might control the emergency lighting." More fumbling, then a click, and Liam saw a faint glow through the gap between the elevator floor and the shaft wall. The emergency backup had kicked in. "Good," Liam said. "That's good. Now I need you to tell me everything you see. How much space do you have? Are the walls intact? Can you see any smoke or smell anything burning?" "The walls are intact. No smoke. It's just small, really small." "What's the temperature like?" "Hot. It's getting hot." Liam checked his watch. 11:58 p.m. The ventilation system had been offline for maybe 6 minutes, which meant the temperature inside the elevator was probably climbing about 2 degrees per minute. Not immediately dangerous, but uncomfortable and getting worse. "Vivian, listen to me. You're going to be fine. The elevator's secure. There's no fire, and I'm right here. I'm going to get the access hatch open and get you out. It's going to take me a few minutes, but I need you to stay calm. Can you do that?" "Just get me out." Liam unclipped his tool bag and pulled out a pry bar and a socket wrench. The elevator's top hatch was secured with 4 bolts that were supposed to be easy to remove in an emergency. In practice, they were usually rusted, over-torqued, or both. He positioned himself on the elevator frame, braced his feet against the guide rail, and fitted the socket wrench over the first bolt. It didn't budge. "What's happening?" Vivian's voice came through the hatch, muffled but clear enough. "Just loosening some bolts." "Talk to me, Vivian. What were you doing before the elevator stopped?" "Leaving a party." "Penthouse party?" "Yes." "Must be some party if you're leaving before midnight." Silence. Then, "I don't like parties." Liam put his weight into the wrench. The bolt moved a quarter turn, then another. "Yeah, what do you like?" "Control. I like control. I like knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and exactly how to prevent things from going wrong." Her voice was bitter. "Lot of good that does me now." "You and me both." The first bolt came free. Liam moved to the second one. "I submitted a maintenance request for this elevator 3 weeks ago. Management said it wasn't urgent." "You work for the building?" "Yeah, maintenance tech. I fix things that break, prevent things from breaking, and file reports that nobody reads." "What's your last name?" "Carter." "Why?" "Just want to know who to thank when this is over." The second bolt was stripped. Liam switched to the pry bar, wedging it under the bolt head and applying pressure. The metal groaned but held. His radio crackled. "Carter, fire department's 10 minutes out. What's your status?" Liam keyed the radio. "I'm on top of the elevator. 1 passenger inside, conscious and talking. No immediate medical emergency. Trying to open the top hatch now." "Negative, Carter. Procedure says you wait for the fire department. They've got the equipment for this." "Procedure also says the emergency lighting should work, and the ventilation should have a backup battery system. How's that going?" "Carter?" 10 minutes is too long, Marcus. I've got this." He released the radio and went back to the bolt. The pry bar slipped, gouged into his palm, came away bloody. Liam swore, wiped his hand on his pants, and tried again. The bolt gave. Then the third one. The fourth one came off so easily he almost dropped the wrench. "Vivian, I'm about to open the hatch. Stand back from the center of the elevator." "Okay." Liam gripped the hatch handle and pulled. The hatch didn't move. He repositioned himself, got better leverage, and pulled harder. Something inside the mechanism gave with a metallic screech, and the hatch swung open. Light spilled up from inside the elevator, the dim emergency lighting, barely bright enough to see by. And in that light, Liam saw Vivian Hale for the first time. She was maybe 30, dark hair pulled back in a style that had probably started the evening looking professional and now looked disheveled, wearing what had clearly been an expensive dress that was now wrinkled and sweat-stained. But what struck Liam was her face, pale, eyes too wide, breathing still too fast, but fighting to maintain composure like someone trying to hold water in cupped hands. She looked up at him, and for a second, neither of them said anything. Then Vivian said, "You're bleeding." Liam looked at his hand. The cut from the pry bar was still seeping blood. "It's fine. Can you climb?" "Can I what?" "There's a ladder right outside the elevator. I can pull you up through the hatch. We get to the ladder, and we climb down to the nearest floor. 39 is right below us." Vivian looked at the hatch opening, then at the darkness of the shaft beyond it, then back at Liam. "You want me to climb down an elevator shaft? I want to get you out of that box before the temperature gets worse or the power fails completely and we're both stuck in here." "That's not... You can't just..." She stopped, took a breath. "Isn't there another way?" "Yeah. We wait for the fire department, they spend 20 minutes setting up equipment, and then they do exactly what I'm about to do, except you've been breathing recycled air for half an hour, and the elevator's 20 degrees hotter." "This is insane. This is mechanical failure and budget cuts. Come on." Liam extended his hand through the hatch. Vivian stared at it like he was offering her a live snake. Then she reached up and took it. Her hand was cold despite the heat in the elevator. Liam pulled, she pushed off against the elevator floor, and with some awkward maneuvering that involved Liam nearly losing his balance and Vivian's dress tearing on the hatch edge, she made it through the opening. For a moment they were both on top of the elevator, Vivian gripping Liam's arm hard enough to leave marks, both of them breathing hard. "Don't look down," Liam said. Vivian looked down. The shaft dropped away into darkness, maybe 200 feet to the basement. She made a small sound that might have been a whimper or a curse. Liam couldn't tell which. "Eyes on me," Liam said. "Just focus on me. See that ladder behind you? That's where we're going. I'm going to clip you to my safety line, then we're going to move together, nice and slow. You're going to be fine. You keep saying that because it's true." He unclipped a carabiner from his harness and attached it to a loop on Vivian's dress. Not ideal, but better than nothing. Then he guided her hand to the ladder. "One rung at a time," he said. "Don't think about how far we have to go, just think about the next rung. I'm right here." Vivian's hand shook as she gripped the ladder. "I hate this." "I know. I hate you a little bit right now. I get that a lot." They started climbing down. It should have been a simple descent, maybe 20 feet to the 39th floor, but with Vivian's unfamiliarity with the ladder and her obvious fear of heights, it took nearly 5 minutes. Liam stayed right behind her, close enough to catch her if she slipped, giving instructions in a steady stream that was probably annoying but seemed to help. "Good. Next rung. That's it. Keep going. Almost there." When they reached the 39th floor, Liam pried open the shaft door from the inside, and they half climbed, half fell through the opening into the carpeted hallway beyond. Vivian sat on the floor, back against the wall, breathing like she'd run a marathon. Liam sat next to her, his hand still bleeding, his radio going crazy with Marcus trying to get a status update. Outside the narrow window at the end of the hallway, the first fireworks exploded across the sky. Brilliant reds and golds reflecting off the windows of downtown buildings, the traditional midnight show that Emma had wanted to watch with him. Liam checked his watch, 12:04 a.m. He'd missed it. "That was the worst experience of my life," Vivian said. "Yeah. I own this building." Liam's head snapped around. "What?" "This building, the Meridian Tower, my company owns it. We've owned it for 8 years. Vivian was looking at him now, and despite the disheveled appearance and the obvious shock, there was something sharp in her eyes. "You said you submitted a maintenance request 3 weeks ago." "Yeah." "For the VIP elevator." "Yeah." "And it was marked non-urgent." "By someone named Derek Paulson." Vivian's expression didn't change, but something in her went very still. "Derek Paulson works for me." "Then you might want to have a conversation with him about what constitutes an urgent safety issue." "I'll do more than have a conversation." She pushed herself to her feet, swaying slightly. Liam stood and steadied her. "You could have died doing that. Climbing into the shaft alone, no backup, no proper equipment. That was completely reckless." "Yeah. Why did you do it?" Liam thought about Emma, waiting with Sarah, probably watching the fireworks from the apartment window and wondering where her dad was. He thought about all the times he'd promised to be there and couldn't, all the times he'd chosen work over watching her grow up because work was how he kept a roof over her head and food in the fridge. He thought about what he would want someone to do if Emma was the one trapped in that elevator. "Because someone had to," he said. Vivian studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "What's your daughter's name?" Liam blinked. "How did you—" "You kept checking your phone in the shaft, and you have a keychain on your tool bag with a child's drawing on it." "Emma. Her name's Emma." "How old is she?" 7. "You should go see her before she falls asleep, before she thinks you forgot about her. I need to make sure you're okay first and fill out an incident report. And, Mr. Carter." Vivian's voice had changed, taking on an edge of command that suggested she was used to being obeyed. "You just saved my life. The incident report can wait until tomorrow. Go see your daughter." Liam wanted to argue, wanted to stay until the fire department arrived and he could hand everything over properly, wanted to make sure that this disaster was documented correctly. So maybe, just maybe, someone would finally pay attention to the building's maintenance problems. But Vivian was right. Emma was more important than paperwork. "Okay," he said, "but you should get checked out by the paramedics. Even if you feel fine, shock can—" "I know what shock is. Go!" Liam grabbed his tool bag and headed for the stairs. He made it down to the 3rd floor in record time, his legs burning, his cut hand throbbing, his mind already rehearsing what he was going to say to Emma. "I'm sorry I missed the fireworks. I had to help someone." "No, I can't tell you who. Privacy rules." "Yes, I know I promised. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you." He knocked on Sarah's door. She opened it immediately, took one look at his face, and said, "She's asleep on the couch. Tried to wait up for you, but couldn't make it past 12:15. Liam stepped inside. Emma was curled up under a blanket, her face peaceful, one hand tucked under her cheek. The TV was still showing fireworks footage. Someone's recording from a better vantage point than they'd had. "What happened?" Sarah asked quietly. "Someone got stuck in an elevator. Had to get them out." "And the blood on your hand?" "Bolt was stuck." Sarah shook her head. "You need to clean that, and probably get stitches, and definitely fill out an accident report. Tomorrow." "Liam." "Tomorrow, Sarah. I promise." He knelt next to Emma and gently touched her shoulder. She stirred, opened her eyes halfway, and smiled. "Daddy." "Hey, sweetheart. Sorry I missed the fireworks." "It's okay. Sarah recorded them." "Yeah?" "Yeah. We can watch tomorrow." Her eyes were already closing again. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too." He carried her back to their apartment, got her into bed, still mostly asleep, and stood in her doorway for a long minute, watching her breathe. Then he went to the bathroom, cleaned the cut on his hand, wrapped it in gauze that probably wasn't tight enough, and sat on the edge of the bathtub thinking about Vivian Hale saying, "You could have died doing that," like it was an accusation and a compliment at the same time. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "This is Vivian Hale. Marcus gave me your contact information. I wanted to make sure you made it home safely." Liam stared at the message, then typed, "Yeah. Home safe. How are you?" "Bruised, exhausted, thoroughly humiliated that I needed to be rescued from my own building. But alive." "Good, I meant what I said. Derek Paulson is going to answer for ignoring that maintenance request, and I'm going to personally review every safety protocol in every building my company owns. That would be good too. Get some sleep, Mr. Carter. And thank you." Liam set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd have to deal with the incident report, the investigation, the inevitable meetings with management. Tomorrow, he'd have to explain why he'd violated safety protocols and climbed into an elevator shaft alone. Tomorrow, he'd have to figure out how to keep doing this job when the system was designed to fail. But tonight, Emma was safe in her bed. Vivian Hale was alive. And the Meridian Tower's VIP elevator was finally, officially taken offline for repairs. It wasn't a victory. Not really. But it was enough. Liam woke up at 5:15 a.m. with his hand throbbing and Emma standing next to his bed holding her stuffed rabbit. "Daddy, your alarm didn't go off." He fumbled for his phone. 5:16 now. His shift started at 6. "Thanks, sweetheart. Go get dressed, okay?" She didn't move. "Your hand has blood on it." The gauze had soaked through during the night, red seeping through white in a pattern that looked worse than it was. Probably. "It's fine. Just a scratch from work." "Mommy used to say you should go to the doctor when things bleed." Liam sat up, trying not to wince. Emma only brought up her mother when something was really bothering her. "Your mom was right about a lot of things, but this is just a cut, okay? I'll clean it up and it'll be fine." Emma studied him with those serious brown eyes that were too old for 7. "You promised we'd watch the fireworks." "I know, I'm sorry." "Sarah said you saved someone." "Yeah. Was it scary?" Liam thought about Vivian's face in the dim emergency lighting, the way her hands had shaken when she grabbed the ladder, the 200-foot drop beneath them that he'd told her not to look at. "A little bit." "Are they okay?" "Yeah, they're okay." Emma nodded, satisfied with that answer in a way that broke something in Liam's chest. She shouldn't have to be satisfied with so little. She should be allowed to be angry that he'd missed another promise, another moment. "Go get dressed," he said again. "I'll make breakfast." By 5:45, they were both in the kitchen, Emma eating cereal while Liam rewrapped his hand with fresh gauze and tried not to drip blood on the counter. His phone kept buzzing with messages he didn't have time to read. Marcus. "Management wants to see you at 8. Marcus. "Seriously, dude, they're pissed." Marcus. "Also, the lady you rescued left you something at the front desk." Sarah. "How's the hand?" Unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Vivian Hale. I need to speak with you today. Please call when you have a moment." Unknown number. "This is Derek Paulson, Facilities Management. You are required to attend a meeting at 8 a.m. in Conference Room B regarding last night's safety violation. Liam deleted Derek's message without finishing it. He'd deal with that particular nightmare after he got Emma to school. Daddy, you're making your angry face. Sorry. He forced his expression into something neutral. Just work stuff. Is it about the person you saved? Sort of. Are you in trouble? Kids weren't supposed to be this perceptive. Maybe a little. That's stupid. You helped someone. Yeah, well, sometimes helping people the wrong way gets you in trouble even when doing it the right way would have taken too long. He realized how cynical that sounded and tried to soften it. It's complicated. Emma went back to her cereal, but he could tell she was still thinking about it. At 7 years old, she'd already figured out that the world didn't always make sense, that rules weren't always fair, that sometimes good people got punished for doing good things. He wished she didn't have to know that yet. They left the apartment at 6:20, Liam in his work coveralls with his tool bag over his shoulder, Emma in her school uniform with her backpack decorated with cartoon characters he didn't recognize. The building's main elevator was working, for now, and they rode down in silence until Emma said, "Can we watch the fireworks video tonight?" "Absolutely." "Promise?" Liam looked down at her. "I promise." She took his hand, the one that wasn't bandaged, and held it until they reached the lobby. Marcus was at the security desk, looking like he hadn't slept. He raised his eyebrows when he saw Liam. "You look terrible." "Thanks. You said something was left for me?" Marcus reached under the desk and pulled out a white envelope with Liam's name written on it in precise handwriting. "The lady from last night. She came by around 6 a.m., left this, said to make sure you got it." "She came back to the building?" "Apparently she wanted to inspect the elevator herself. Spent 20 minutes in the basement with the electrical panels, then came up here and read me the riot act about safety procedures. Very polite riot act, but still." Marcus glanced at Emma, then back at Liam. "Management's pretty worked up. Derek's been calling every 10 minutes. "I'm sure he has. You going to that meeting? Do I have a choice?" "You could quit. Get a job at a building where management actually gives a damn." Liam had thought about that more times than he could count. But jobs with flexible hours and decent pay, and supervisors who didn't ask questions when he had to leave early for Emma's school events, weren't exactly growing on trees. "I'll handle it." Emma tugged on his hand. "Daddy, we're going to be late." They made it to her school with 2 minutes to spare. Liam walked her to the gate where other kids were streaming in, their parents clustered in groups talking about holiday plans and New Year's parties. Nobody talked to Liam. They never did. Single dad, blue-collar job didn't fit into their social circles. He didn't care. Most days. "Have a good day, sweetheart." Emma hugged him, then pulled back and looked up at him seriously. "Don't let them yell at you." "I'll try." "I mean it. You saved someone. That's important." "More important than rules?" She considered this. Rules should help people. If they don't, they're stupid rules. Liam smiled despite everything. "Where'd you learn that?" "You. You say it all the time when you're fixing stuff, and the building won't let you do it right." He probably shouldn't be teaching his 7-year-old daughter to question authority, but he also couldn't find it in himself to regret it. "Get to class." "I love you." "Love you too." He watched her disappear into the building, then checked his watch. 7:35. He had 25 minutes to get back to the Meridian Tower, change out of his blood-stained coveralls, and prepare for whatever corporate disaster Derek Paulson had planned for him. The envelope Marcus had given him was still in his pocket. Liam opened it on the subway. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. "Mr. Carter, I wanted to thank you again for last night. I also wanted to apologize. I spent this morning reviewing maintenance records for the Meridian Tower, and what I found was inexcusable. Your work orders weren't just ignored. They were deliberately deprioritized by middle management who valued short-term budget targets over safety. I take full responsibility for not catching this sooner. I should have been more involved in operational oversight. That changes now. I understand you may face consequences for violating safety procedures during the rescue. If management attempts to discipline you, please contact me directly. What you did was brave and necessary, and I won't let you be punished for their negligence. Vivian Hale. Personal cell 555-0147. Liam read the note twice, then folded it and put it back in his pocket. The cynical part of him, the part that had been dealing with corporate bureaucracy for too long, wondered if this was just damage control, A wealthy CEO covering her tracks by pretending to care about the maintenance worker who'd saved her. But the way she'd looked at him in that hallway, sitting on the floor after climbing down from the shaft, breathing hard and trying not to fall apart, that hadn't been pretend. He got off at his stop and walked the last 3 blocks to the Meridian Tower. The building looked different in daylight, less glamorous, more like what it really was, an aging structure with a nice facade and serious problems underneath. Marcus waved him through the lobby. Conference room B. Derek's already there with 2 HR people. Looked pretty smug about it. Great. You want me to accidentally trigger the fire alarm during your meeting? Tempting, but no. Liam took the stairs to the 4th floor where the administrative offices were. He'd been in these hallways maybe 3 times in 7 years, always for meetings that ended with him being told to do more with less. Conference room B was at the end of the hall. Through the glass walls, Liam could see Derek Paulson sitting at the head of the table, flanked by 2 people in business suits who had HR written all over them. Derek was maybe 45, expensive suit, expensive watch, the kind of guy who'd never done physical labor in his life and liked to remind people about his MBA. Liam opened the door. Morning. Derek looked up with an expression that tried for stern authority, but landed somewhere around petty satisfaction. Mr. Carter, please sit down. Liam sat. The HR people introduced themselves, Jennifer something and Michael something else, and explained that this was a formal review of last night's incident and his violations of safety protocols. Let's be clear about what happened, Derek said, pulling out a folder that was way too thick for a single incident. At approximately 11:50 p.m., you entered an elevator shaft without authorization, without proper safety equipment, without a second person present, and without notifying emergency services of your intentions. Is that accurate? I notified Marcus. Marcus called emergency services. After you'd already entered the shaft. Because waiting would have put the passenger at risk. Derek smiled like Liam had just walked into a trap. And that's the problem, isn't it? You made a unilateral decision to bypass established safety procedures based on your own judgment. My judgment was that someone needed help and help wasn't going to arrive in time. Your judgment, Derek repeated. Not the fire department's judgment, not management's judgment. Yours. Jennifer from HR leaned forward. Mr. Carter, we understand you meant well, but protocols exist for a reason. What if you'd been injured? What if the elevator had fallen? We'd be dealing with 2 casualties instead of 1, plus the legal liability. The elevator couldn't fall. The holding brake was engaged. You couldn't have known that for certain. Yeah, I could. I checked the diagnostic panel before entering the shaft. Derek's smile got wider. Which brings us to another issue. You accessed the building's primary electrical control systems without authorization. Those systems are restricted to licensed engineers only. Liam felt his jaw tighten. I'm a licensed maintenance technician with electrical certification. I've been working on those systems for 7 years. Your certification doesn't cover primary building systems. Then who does it cover? Because the last time there was an electrical emergency, management called me at 2 a.m. to fix it. That's different. How? Derek shuffled papers like he was looking for something specific. The point is, Mr. Carter, you've demonstrated a pattern of overstepping your authority. Taking initiative is admirable, but this job requires following procedures, not improvising. Procedures like marking urgent safety repairs as non-urgent? The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. Derek's smile disappeared. Excuse me? Liam pulled out his phone and opened his photos. He'd taken pictures of the relay box 3 weeks ago when he'd first documented the problem. November 28th. I found a failing relay in the VIP elevator system. Overheating, cracked insulation, bypassed safety interlocks. I submitted a work order with these photos and thermal readings showing the components were operating 15 degrees above tolerance. He scrolled to the next image. December 4th. Work order rejected, marked non-urgent. I resubmitted with additional documentation. December 11th, rejected again. December 18th, I wrote a formal memo explaining that this wasn't a maintenance issue, it was a safety hazard. That memo was sent to your office, Derek. Derek's face had gone carefully blank. I receive hundreds of work orders. I can't personally review every... This one had safety hazard in the subject line, in all caps. You marked it as budget constrained and closed the ticket. If it was truly urgent, you should have escalated it. To who? You're the escalation point. Michael from HR cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on last night's incident specifically. Last night's incident happened because the safety hazard I reported 3 weeks ago finally failed, Liam said, his voice harder than he'd intended. Someone got trapped in that elevator because management prioritized budget targets over fixing a known problem. So yeah, I violated some protocols getting her out. I'd do it again. Derek stood up. That's enough. This meeting is about your actions, not about... The conference room door opened. Vivian Hale walked in like she owned the place, which Liam supposed she did. She was wearing a different dress than last night. This one, charcoal gray and perfectly tailored, her hair pulled back in a style that probably had a fancy name. She looked every inch the CEO, polished, professional, completely in control. Nothing like the terrified woman hyperventilating in a dark elevator. Ms.
Hale, Derek said, and Liam heard genuine panic in his voice. We weren't expecting... I'm sure you weren't. Vivian's voice was pleasant, which somehow made it more dangerous. Jennifer, Michael, thank you for your time. I'll take it from here. Jennifer and Michael looked at each other, looked at Derek, and apparently decided this was above their pay grade. They gathered their papers and left without a word. Derek stayed put. Ms.
Hale, I'm conducting a formal review of the man who saved my life last night while I was trapped in an elevator that should have been repaired weeks ago. Vivian sat down in the chair Jennifer had vacated. Please continue. I'm very interested in hearing about Mr. Carter's violations. Derek's mouth opened and closed a few times. The situation is more complex than, is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems quite simple. Mr. Carter identified a safety hazard. He reported it through proper channels. His reports were ignored. The hazard resulted in an emergency. He responded to that emergency in the only way that would have prevented serious harm. She paused. Which part of that is complex? He violated safety protocols. Because following those protocols would have meant waiting for emergency services while I ran out of breathable air in a sealed elevator. Would that have been preferable? That's not the point. Then what is the point, Derek? The way she said his name made it sound like an insult. Derek's face flushed red. The point is that we have procedures for a reason, and when employees decide those procedures don't apply to them, the procedures failed, Vivian said flatly. The maintenance request system failed. The safety review process failed. The budget allocation system failed. Mr. Carter succeeded. If you're looking for someone to discipline over last night's incident, I suggest you start with yourself. Liam had spent 7 years watching corporate people talk. He'd seen plenty of arguments, plenty of power plays, plenty of middle managers trying to cover their asses when things went wrong. But he'd never seen someone dismantled quite this efficiently. Derek tried one more time. Ms. Hale, with all respect, you may not be aware of all the operational challenges. I reviewed the maintenance logs this morning. Every work order Mr. Carter submitted in the past year. Do you know what I found? Derek didn't answer. 17 urgent repairs marked non-urgent. 23 work orders rejected for budget reasons despite being related to safety systems. And 41 instances where Mr. Carter documented a problem, filed proper reports, and then went ahead and fixed it anyway, using his own time and his own money because waiting for approval would have endangered residents. She pulled out a printed spreadsheet and slid it across the table. Liam caught a glimpse of highlighted rows, color-coded categories, the kind of detailed analysis that someone had spent hours putting together. I had my assistant pull these numbers at 6 a.m., Vivian continued. It took her 30 minutes. 30 minutes to find a pattern of negligence and corner cutting that could have gotten people killed. She looked at Derek. How long have you been facilities manager? 3 years? And in those 3 years, how many times have you personally inspected the building's safety systems? Silence. That's what I thought. Vivian stood up. You're fired, Derek. Security will escort you out. HR will handle the paperwork. Derek's face went from red to white. You can't. I have a contract. Your contract includes a termination clause for gross negligence. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. She opened the conference room door. Please leave. For a second, Liam thought Derek might argue more, but whatever he saw in Vivian's expression convinced him that resistance was futile. He grabbed his folder and walked out, moving like someone in shock. The door closed. Vivian turned to Liam. Are you all right? I think so. That was overdue. She sat down again, and some of the CEO mask slipped. She looked tired. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. With him. You didn't have to fire him for me. I didn't fire him for you. I fired him because he's been systematically ignoring safety issues to meet budget targets, and eventually that was going to get someone hurt or killed. Last night just made it impossible to ignore. She paused, although I will admit there was some personal satisfaction in it. Liam almost smiled. Glad I could help. How's your hand? He'd forgotten about the bandage. Fine, just a cut. You should get it checked. Cuts in elevator shafts tend to come with tetanus risks. I'll add it to the list. Vivian studied him for a moment. You're angry. No, He stopped. Yeah, I'm angry. I've been filing those reports for years, watching them get ignored, watching the building fall apart piece by piece, while management pats themselves on the back for staying under budget. And then last night, someone nearly dies because of it. And the first thing Derek wants to do is punish me for fixing the problem he created. That's a reasonable thing to be angry about. Is it? Because most days I think I'm just being entitled, like I should be grateful to have a job and stop complaining about how it's done. Most days you're wrong. Vivian leaned forward. I meant what I said in that note. What you did last night was brave and necessary, and I'm not going to let you be punished for it. You just fired my boss. I think that counts as not being punished. Derek was never your boss. He was an obstacle between you and doing your job properly. She pulled out her phone and made a note. I'm restructuring the facilities department. New management, new protocols, new budget allocations. It's going to take a few weeks to implement, but in the meantime, you report directly to me. Liam blinked. What? You heard me. You're a CEO. You can't spend time managing individual maintenance techs. I can if that maintenance tech is the only person in this building who seems to care whether people live or die. She put her phone away. I'm also giving you a raise. What are you making now? That's not 48,000, Vivian said, reading from something on her phone. I'm moving you to 75 plus benefits plus hazard pay for any emergency work, plus a discretionary budget for safety repairs that you deem necessary. Liam's head was spinning. You can't just... I can actually. I own the building. And before you argue about it being charity or pity or whatever else you're thinking, consider this. I'm giving you the salary you should have been making all along based on the actual work you do. Derek was underpaying you because he could get away with it. She was right. Liam knew she was right, but accepting it felt like admitting he'd been getting screwed for 7 years, and that was harder to swallow than he'd expected. I need to think about it, he said finally. Fair enough. Take a few days, but Liam? She waited until he looked at her. I'm serious about the reporting structure. Until we get proper management in place, anything you need, anything that's broken or dangerous or wrong, you call me directly, day or night. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday. If it's important, I want to know. Why? Because I've spent 8 years trusting other people to manage these buildings properly, and last night proved that trust was misplaced. I need someone I can actually trust. Someone who won't tell me what I want to hear, who'll tell me what I need to know. She held out her hand. Can you do that? Liam looked at her outstretched hand, thought about all the times he'd bitten his tongue in meetings, all the reports he'd filed knowing they'd be ignored, all the corners he'd cut to keep the building running because nobody else would. He shook her hand. Yeah, I can do that. Good. Vivian stood. I have a meeting at 9, but my assistant will send you the updated contact information and the new reporting protocols. In the meantime, is there anything immediately urgent I should know about? Liam thought about the boiler on the 6th floor that had been making worrying noises, the fire door on 12 that didn't close properly, the backup generator that hadn't been tested in 3 months. How much time do you have? For this? As much as it takes. So Liam told her, not just about the immediate problems, but about the systemic issues, the deferred maintenance, the cut corners, the way the building's infrastructure had been quietly failing for years while management focused on cosmetic improvements that looked good to residents but did nothing for safety. Vivian listened without interrupting, taking notes on her phone, her expression getting grimmer with each item on Liam's list. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, How is this building still standing? Honestly, because people like me keep fixing things that aren't our job to fix. That needs to change. Yeah, I mean it. This, she gestured at her phone, at the list of problems Liam had just recited. This is criminal, not hyperbole, actual criminal negligence. I'm bringing in independent inspectors, and if they find what I think they're going to find, there are going to be lawsuits. That's going to be expensive. Not as expensive as someone dying, Vivian's voice was hard. I built this company on the idea that luxury means quality, that our buildings are safe and well-maintained and worth the premium prices we charge. If that's not true, if I've been selling a lie while people like Derek cut corners to make me richer, then I need to fix it. Even if it costs you? Especially if it costs me. Liam studied her face, looking for signs that this was performance, that she was saying what sounded good rather than what she meant. But all he saw was the same expression she'd had last night when she'd looked up at him through the elevator hatch. Raw, honest, a little bit scared of what came next. Okay, he said. I'll help however I can. Thank you. She checked her watch. I really do have to go. But Liam, what you said earlier about feeling entitled for wanting to do your job properly, don't ever apologize for that. The people who should be apologizing are the ones who made you feel that way in the first place. She left before he could respond. Liam sat in the empty conference room for a few minutes, trying to process everything that had just happened. He'd come here expecting to be written up, maybe suspended, possibly fired. Instead, his boss had been fired, he'd been offered a massive raise, and he'd somehow ended up reporting directly to a CEO who seemed genuinely interested in fixing the systemic problems he'd been complaining about for years. It felt like a trap. Not because Vivian was dishonest, but because good things didn't happen to Liam Carter. Not without a catch. His phone buzzed. Emma's school. Emma forgot her lunchbox. Can you drop it off? Right. Real life. The kind that didn't care about corporate restructuring or salary negotiations or CEOs who fired people in conference rooms. Liam grabbed his tool bag and headed home to get Emma's lunchbox, already calculating whether he had time to swing by the clinic about his hand before his shift officially started at noon. Probably not. He'd deal with it later. Story of his life, dealing with things later because right now there was always something more urgent that needed attention. But maybe, just maybe, that was about to change. The independent inspectors arrived on January 3rd with clipboards, thermal cameras, and the kind of grim expressions that said they'd already seen enough to know this wasn't going to be good. Liam met them in the lobby at 7 a.m., his hand still bandaged but healing, his new work authorization badge feeling strange and official in his pocket. Vivian had messaged him the night before. Be honest with them. Show them everything. He'd planned to anyway. The lead inspector was a woman named Patricia Chen, maybe 50, with gray streaks in her hair and calluses on her hands that said she'd done actual work before moving into oversight. She shook Liam's hand and got straight to business. Ms. Hale said you've been documenting problems for a while. 7 years worth. We'll need to see all of it, work orders, photos, anything you've got. Liam pulled out his phone. He'd organized everything into folders over the years, partly because he'd hoped someone would eventually care, and partly because documentation was the only defense he had when things went wrong. Where do you want to start? Patricia looked at her team, 3 other inspectors, all carrying equipment that probably cost more than Liam's car. Let's start with whatever scared you the most. That was easy. The electrical system. They spent 4 hours in the basement and mechanical rooms. Patricia's team photographing relay boxes, testing circuits, measuring voltage fluctuations that made the senior electrical inspector actually curse out loud. Liam showed them the VIP elevator relay that had failed, the jury-rigged bypass wires, the thermal damage that had been slowly cooking the insulation for months. This should have been replaced years ago, Patricia said, not looking up from her thermal camera. How long has it been like this? The bypass wires? At least 5 years, maybe longer. They were already there when I started. And the relay itself? Started showing problems last November, got worse in December, failed on the 23rd. Patricia made a note. The maintenance logs show this was reported multiple times. 3 times, all marked non-urgent, by Derek Paulson. Yeah,
She was quiet for a moment, the camera still pointed at the relay box.
Then she said, "I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen deferred maintenance, I've seen budget cuts, I've seen management prioritize profits over safety. But this?" She lowered the camera and looked at Liam. "This is deliberate negligence. Someone knew this was dangerous and chose to ignore it." "Multiple someones," Liam said. Derek wasn't the first facilities manager to ignore these reports. He was just the most recent. Patricia's expression hardened. "Show me what else they ignored." The fire suppression system on floors 8 through 12 had pressure issues. The backup generator hadn't been properly tested in 18 months. 3 emergency exit doors had malfunctioning panic bars. The ventilation system in the parking garage was running at 60% capacity because someone had disconnected 2 fans to reduce noise complaints. By noon, Patricia's team had filled 2 notebooks with violations and taken over 300 photos. They broke for lunch in the building's courtyard, the inspectors comparing notes while Liam checked his phone. Emma. "Can Jamie come over after school?" Jamie was Emma's best friend, a quiet kid whose parents both worked late. Liam had met them maybe twice. Liam. "Sure, I'll be home by 4. Emma. "Promise?" He looked at the inspectors, still deep in discussion about load calculations and fire code violations, and wondered how long the afternoon inspection would take. Liam. "Promise." Patricia noticed him texting. "You need to leave?" "No, I'm good. Just coordinating with my daughter." "How old?" 7. Patricia nodded like that explained something. "My son's 9, gets home at 3:30, calls me every day to complain about homework, single parent." "Yeah." "Hardest job there is." She stood up, brushing crumbs off her pants. "All right, let's tackle the upper floors. I want to see those fire doors you mentioned." They spent the afternoon working their way up the building. Liam had done this route so many times he could probably do it blind. Every creaking floorboard, every door that stuck, every light fixture that flickered. But watching the inspectors document it all made it feel different, made him see the building through their eyes instead of his own. It looked bad. Floor 19, one of the fire doors, wouldn't close properly because the frame had warped from water damage that had never been repaired. Floor 23, the emergency lighting in the stairwell was out entirely, the backup batteries dead for months. Floor 31, someone had propped open a fire door with a wooden wedge to make it easier for residents to access the rooftop terrace. "Who authorized this?" Patricia asked, photographing the wedge. "Nobody. Residents do it themselves. I removed them. They put them back." "Have you reported it?" "Every time. Management says it's a quality of life issue and we shouldn't antagonize residents over minor violations." Patricia wrote something that looked like it involved a lot of underlining. "Fire doors aren't quality of life issues. They're life safety systems. If there's a fire, these doors are supposed to contain it. A wedge defeats the entire purpose." "I know. And management knows you know, but they told you to ignore it anyway." "Pretty much." She looked at him. "How have you done this job for 7 years without losing your mind?" "Who says I haven't?" That got a tired smile from her. "Fair point." By the time they finished the upper floors, it was 3:45 p.m. Liam's phone had been buzzing with messages for the last 20 minutes. Emma asking where he was, Sarah offering to pick up both girls from school, Jamie's mom asking if the playdate was still happening. Patricia saw him checking. "Go, we've got enough for today. I'll need you again tomorrow, but we can start later if you need morning time with your kid." "You sure?" "I've got kids too. I know how it works." She handed him a business card. "My cell's on there. If you think of anything else we should see, call me. It doesn't matter what time." Liam made it home by 4:15, where Emma and Jamie were already camped out in the living room with a game that involved a lot of cards and rules he didn't understand. Sarah had let them in with her spare key and left a note. "Girls already ate snacks. Jamie's mom will pick her up at 6. He changed out of his work clothes, made himself coffee that had gone cold before he remembered to drink it, and tried not to think about the inspection reports that were probably being typed up right now. Reports that would confirm what he'd been saying for years. Reports that would prove Derek and whoever came before him had been gambling with people's lives to save money. Reports that wouldn't bring back the time he'd lost watching his daughter grow up while he fixed problems that never should have existed. His phone rang. Vivian. "How did it go?" she asked without preamble. About as bad as you'd expect. Patricia thinks we're looking at code violations in the hundreds, maybe thousands, depending on how detailed the final report gets. Silence on the other end, then, hundreds. Yeah. I'm going to be sick. Patricia said it's not the worst she's seen, but it's close. The electrical system alone is going to require a complete overhaul. The fire suppression system needs major work. The emergency systems are barely functional, and that's just what we covered today. More silence. Liam heard something that might have been Vivian taking a drink, or maybe just breathing hard. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No, but that's not your problem." Her voice was steady again, that CEO control sliding back into place. What else did they find? Liam spent the next 20 minutes walking her through the inspection, trying to translate technical problems into terms that made sense. Vivian asked good questions, not the surface-level stuff management usually cared about, but real questions about why things had failed, how long they'd been failing, what it would take to actually fix them instead of patching them. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I need to close the building." "What?" "Not permanently, but until we can make the emergency repairs, it's not safe. If Patricia's report is as bad as you're saying, I can't in good conscience keep people living here." "Vivian, there are over 300 units in this building. Where are they supposed to go?" "I'll pay for temporary housing, hotels, short-term rentals, whatever it takes. I'll also cover moving costs, storage, everything. But I can't risk someone dying because I was too proud or too cheap to admit my buildings aren't safe." Liam thought about Emma, about having to pack up their apartment and move to some hotel for who knew how long. He thought about all the other families in the building, the elderly residents who'd lived here for decades, the people who couldn't just uproot their lives on a week's notice. But he also thought about that relay failing, about Vivian trapped in the dark, about all the near misses he'd prevented over the years that nobody knew about because they'd never quite turned into disasters. "When?" he asked. "Soon as I can coordinate it. Maybe a week, maybe less. I'll need your help figuring out the logistics. What needs to happen first? What can wait? How to prioritize the repairs. That's going to be a long list. Then we'd better start now. Can you meet tomorrow? Early? Before the inspectors arrive?" Liam looked at Emma and Jamie, still absorbed in their game. "How early? 6? Yeah, I can do 6. "Thank you." She paused. "I know this is a lot. The inspection, the restructuring, everything. If it's too much, it's not too much. It's just different." He watched Emma laugh at something Jamie said, the sound bright and unselfconscious. "I'm used to fighting to get things fixed. I'm not used to someone actually listening." "Get used to it. This is how things work now." After they hung up, Liam sat on the couch and let himself feel it. The exhaustion, the relief, the strange disorientation of having someone in power actually give a damn. It felt fragile, like something that could disappear if he looked at it too hard. Emma climbed onto the couch next to him. "You okay, Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart. Just tired. You're always tired." "I know." She leaned against him, still watching her game. "Sarah says you got a new boss." "Sort of. It's complicated." "Is she nice?" Liam thought about Vivian firing Derek, about the way she'd listened to every problem on his list without trying to minimize it or explain it away. "Yeah, I think she is." "Good. Your old boss was mean." "You never met Derek." "You made your angry face every time you talked about him. That means he was mean." Liam wrapped an arm around her. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're busy fixing stuff." That hit harder than it should have. He pulled her closer. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For being busy all the time, for missing the fireworks, for all of it." Emma twisted to look up at him. "You saved someone. That's important." "You're important too." "I know, but other people need you too. That's okay." She said it so matter-of-factly, like she'd already worked out the math on how much of her father she was willing to share with the world. 7 years old and already making compromises she shouldn't have to make. Jamie's mom arrived at 6 to pick her up. Liam made dinner, pasta again, because Emma would eat pasta every night if he let her, and they watched the fireworks recording while eating on the couch. Emma narrated the whole thing, pointing out which ones she liked best, which ones were too loud, which ones looked like flowers or stars or dragons. Next year, we'll watch them together, Liam said. For real this time. You said that last year. I know, but I mean it. You meant it last year too. Liam didn't have a good answer for that. Emma finished her pasta and curled up against him, already half asleep even though it was only 7:30. He let her doze, stroking her hair, trying to memorize this moment before everything changed again. His phone buzzed. Patricia Chen. Preliminary findings attached. Call me when you've read them. Liam opened the attachment one-handed, trying not to disturb Emma. The report was 30 pages long, single-spaced, with sections highlighted in red that indicated immediate safety hazards. He skimmed through it, his stomach sinking with each page. Critical fire safety deficiencies. Electrical systems operating outside safe parameters. Emergency systems non-functional or improperly maintained. Structural concerns requiring immediate engineering review. The conclusion was 2 paragraphs, written in the carefully neutral language of someone who'd learned to communicate bad news professionally. Based on our inspection findings, the Meridian Tower presents multiple immediate risks to occupant safety. We recommend temporary closure until critical repairs can be completed and recertified. Continued occupancy without addressing these deficiencies represents an unacceptable risk of catastrophic failure. Liam closed the file and called Patricia. You read it, she said instead of hello. Yeah, it's bad. I know. The electrical system alone, Liam, that relay that failed, that was the least of your problems. The main distribution panel is overloaded, the neutral bus is corroding, and someone bypassed the ground fault protection on at least 6 circuits. If that building has made it this long without a major electrical fire, it's pure luck. How long to fix it? Complete overhaul, 4 to 6 months minimum, and that's just electrical. The fire suppression system needs work. The emergency systems need to be rebuilt from scratch, and we haven't even started on the structural review yet. 4 to 6 months. Liam tried to imagine telling Emma they'd be living in a hotel for half a year, tried to imagine what that would do to her routine, her school, her sense of stability. What about partial occupancy? He asked. Could we keep some floors open while we work on others? Not safely. The electrical and fire systems are integrated throughout the building. You can't isolate one section without compromising the whole system. So everyone has to leave. Everyone has to leave. After the call, Liam sat in the dark with Emma asleep against him and tried to figure out how to explain this. Not just to Emma, but to all the residents who were about to have their lives disrupted because management had been cutting corners for years. He carried Emma to her bed and tucked her in, watching her sleep for a minute before heading to his own room. His phone buzzed again. Vivian. Patricia sent me the report. Are you awake? Liam. Yeah, Vivian. Can I call? The call came through before he could answer. I'm closing it, Vivian said. Her voice was rough, like she'd been crying or yelling or maybe both. 2 weeks. That gives residents time to arrange temporary housing, gives us time to coordinate with the city, gives everyone time to prepare. But after that, it's done until the repairs are finished. 2 weeks is fast. Too fast? No, it's right. Faster would be better, but people need time. Will you help me coordinate it? Not just the technical side, but talking to residents, explaining what's happening, answering questions. They trust you more than they'll trust me. Liam almost laughed. They don't even know who I am. Yes, they do. I've been getting messages all week from residents who heard about the rescue. They know you're the guy who fixes things when they break, who shows up at 2 a.m. when their heat stops working, who actually cares whether they're safe. They'll listen to you. I'm not good at that kind of thing, talking to people, making speeches. You don't have to make speeches. Just tell them the truth. You're good at that. Liam thought about all the times he'd bitten his tongue, all the reports he'd filed knowing they'd be ignored, all the years he'd spent learning to play by corporate rules that were designed to protect management instead of residents. Okay, he said. I'll help. Thank you. He heard her take a breath. I'm scared, Liam. That surprised him. Vivian Hale didn't seem like someone who admitted to being scared. Of what? Of how bad this could have been. Of how close we came. If that elevator had failed differently. If you hadn't been there. If She stopped. I keep thinking about all the things that had to go wrong for me to end up trapped in that elevator. And then I think about all the things that had to go right for you to get me out. And the margin between those two things is so small it terrifies me. Liam knew that feeling. He'd had it every time he found a problem that could have killed someone, every time he'd patched something that should have been replaced, every time he'd made it home alive from fixing things that could have exploded or collapsed or electrocuted him. Yeah, he said. Me too. How do you deal with it? I don't. I just keep moving forward and hope the next disaster doesn't come before I'm ready for it. Vivian laughed, but it sounded more like crying. That's a terrible strategy. It's the only one I've got. They stayed on the phone for another hour, going through logistics and timelines and all the practical details of closing down a building full of people. It should have been depressing, all of it, the scale of the repairs needed, the cost, the disruption to hundreds of lives. But somehow, talking to Vivian about it made it feel manageable, like they were building something instead of just fixing what was broken. Eventually, they ran out of things to discuss and just sat in silence, the phone line connecting them across whatever distance separated their apartments. I should let you sleep, Vivian said finally. Probably. But thank you, for tonight, for all of it. You're the one paying to fix the building and house 300 families. I'm just showing people where the problems are. You're doing more than that. Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything. After they hung up, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that was about to change. The building closing, the repairs, the months of disruption, the possibility that maybe things could actually get better instead of just less terrible. He thought about Vivian's voice on the phone, the way she'd admitted to being scared like it was a secret she didn't share often. He thought about Emma sleeping in the next room, how he was going to explain that they had to leave their home for a while. And he thought about the elevator shaft, about pulling Vivian up through that hatch into the darkness, about the moment when they'd both been balancing on top of a suspended elevator with nothing but a safety line and trust keeping them from falling. That moment felt like it had happened years ago, and 5 minutes ago all at once. Liam's phone buzzed one more time. Vivian. Sleep well, tomorrow's going to be hard. He almost wrote back something professional and appropriate. Instead he wrote, You too. Her response came immediately. Not likely, but I appreciate the thought. Liam smiled in the dark and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be hard. The day after that would probably be worse, and the months ahead were going to test both of them in ways they couldn't predict. But tonight, someone was finally listening. Someone was finally taking the problem seriously. Someone was finally willing to do the hard, expensive, disruptive work of actually fixing what was broken instead of just managing the decline. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was a start. The resident meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. on January 5th in the building's ground floor community room, a space that usually hosted yoga classes and book clubs and birthday parties for people who could afford to rent it for $300 an hour. Tonight, it was packed with angry people who wanted answers. Liam stood near the front with Vivian, Patricia Chen, and a lawyer whose name he'd already forgotten. The room held maybe 200 people, but it felt like more. Residents crowded into folding chairs, standing along the walls, sitting on the floor. The energy was hostile, the kind of barely contained fury that came from people who'd been told their lives were about to be disrupted and hadn't been given enough time to process it. Vivian stepped up to the microphone. She was wearing a different suit, this one dark blue, her hair pulled back in that same severe style. She looked composed, professional, completely in control. Liam knew better. He'd seen her hand shaking when she'd arrived 20 minutes ago, seen the way she'd checked her notes 3 times, even though she probably had the whole speech memorized. Thank you all for coming, Vivian said, and the room quieted slightly. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. I'm angry too. Then why are you closing the building? Someone shouted from the back. Because it's not safe, and I won't ask you to live somewhere that could hurt you or your families. She nodded to Patricia. Ms. Chen is an independent inspector who spent the last 3 days reviewing this building's systems. What she found is unacceptable. I'm going to let her explain the details, but I want to be clear about something first. This is my failure. My company owns this building. We're responsible for maintaining it. We didn't do that job properly, and I'm sorry. The apology seemed to take some of the heat out of the room. Not all of it. People were still angry, still scared, still facing the prospect of packing up their lives with less than 2 weeks' notice, but the acknowledgement helped. Patricia took the microphone and ran through a condensed version of her findings. She used simpler language than the official report, translating technical problems into terms people could understand. The electrical system was dangerous. The fire suppression system wouldn't work properly in an emergency. The emergency exits had problems that could trap people during an evacuation. "How long has it been like this?" a woman in the third row asked. She was maybe 60, wearing a cardigan that had seen better days, her voice sharp with accusation. Patricia glanced at Liam. He'd known this question was coming. He'd hoped someone else would answer it. "Years," he said, stepping forward. "The problems didn't happen overnight. They've been building up because maintenance requests were ignored or deprioritized to save money." "And you knew about this?" The woman's eyes were hard. "You work here. Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried. I filed reports, submitted work orders, documented everything, but I'm maintenance staff. Nobody listens to maintenance staff." "So you just kept quiet while we lived in a death trap?" Liam felt the accusation like a punch. "No. I kept fixing things. Every time something broke, I fixed it. Every time I found a safety hazard, I either repaired it myself or I flagged it for management and then fixed it anyway when they ignored me. I've been holding this building together with duct tape and prayer for 7 years because if I didn't, it would have fallen apart a long time ago." The room had gone very quiet. "But fixing individual problems doesn't solve systemic ones," Liam continued. "The electrical panel I patched last month, it needed to be replaced 5 years ago. The fire door I adjusted last week, the whole frame is warped from water damage that should have been addressed when it first happened. I can keep things running, but I can't rebuild infrastructure that's been neglected for decades. Nobody can." A man in an expensive-looking sweater stood up. "So what happens now? You kick us out, do your repairs, and then jack up the rent to pay for it?" Vivian took the microphone back. "No rent increases, not for existing residents. You'll pay the same rate you're paying now when you return. And we're covering all costs for temporary housing, moving, storage, everything. You won't pay a dime for the displacement." "How long?" someone else asked. "Minimum 4 months, possibly 6, depending on what the structural engineers find." The room erupted. People shouting over each other, demanding answers, asking questions faster than anyone could respond. Liam heard fragments. "My lease says, I have a daughter in school. My mother can't just move. This is insane," but couldn't separate individual voices from the general chaos. Vivian tried to speak over the noise, failed, tried again. The lawyer stepped forward and said something about legal obligations and lease protections, which only made people angrier. Liam looked at the crowd, at the fear and anger and confusion on their faces, and thought about Emma's question from 2 nights ago. "Are you in trouble?" He took the microphone from Vivian. "Hey! Hey!" The room quieted slightly. "I get it," Liam said. "This sucks. You didn't ask for this, you don't deserve it, and 2 weeks isn't enough time. But here's what I know. On December 23rd, someone got trapped in the VIP elevator because a relay that should have been replaced in November finally failed. I went into the shaft and got them out, and when I did, I saw exactly how bad the systems in this building really are. Not just broken, dangerous. The kind of dangerous where one more failure, one more electrical fault, one more thing going wrong at the wrong time, and we'd be dealing with casualties instead of inconvenience." He paused, looking around the room. "I have a 7-year-old daughter who lives in this building. If I thought we could stay safely, I'd say so. But we can't. And I'd rather deal with 6 months of hotels and disruption than attend funerals for people who died because we decided comfort was more important than safety." The woman in the cardigan spoke again, her voice quieter now. "You really think it's that bad?" "I know it's that bad. I've been watching this building deteriorate for years. This isn't Ms. Hale trying to scam anyone or make a profit. This is her finally doing what should have been done a long time ago." An older man near the front raised his hand. Liam recognized him. Mr. Castellano, apartment 2804, always complained about the noise from upstairs but always said thank you when Liam fixed something. "What about people who can't afford to move? Even if she's paying for hotels, I've got medications that need refrigeration, equipment I can't transport easily. My wife has home health aides who come 3 times a week. How does that work in a hotel?" Vivian stepped forward. We're setting up a dedicated support line for situations like yours. Medical needs, accessibility requirements, anything that requires special accommodation. We'll work with you individually to find solutions. If the standard hotel arrangement doesn't work, we'll find something that does. And you expect us to trust that? No, Vivian said. I expect you to hold me accountable. Mr. Carter has my direct number. So does the Residents Association president. If something isn't working, if you're not getting the support we promised, you call and you tell me. And if I don't fix it, you sue me. You'll win, because this is all going to be in writing. That seemed to surprise people more than anything else she'd said. The meeting went on for another 90 minutes. People asked about moving logistics, lease protections, what would happen to their belongings, whether they could access the building during repairs, how they'd know when it was safe to return. Vivian, Patricia, and the lawyer answered as best they could. Liam jumped in when technical questions came up, trying to translate engineering concerns into practical information. By the time it ended at 9:30, Liam was exhausted. His hand was throbbing again. He'd been gesturing too much, probably pulled something. The room slowly emptied, residents filing out in small groups, still talking among themselves, still processing. Mr. Castellano approached Liam on his way out. That thing you said about your daughter, you meant it? Yeah. Then I guess we don't have a choice. He didn't sound happy about it, but he sounded resigned. My wife and I, we've lived here for 12 years. Watched this place go from well-maintained to barely functional. Always wondered when someone would care enough to fix it properly. Better late than never? Better late than too late. Mr. Castellano nodded to Vivian, who was talking to a cluster of younger residents near the door. She seems serious about this. She is. Good. We'll see if that lasts. He shuffled toward the exit, moving slowly, age and frustration both weighing on him. Liam helped fold chairs while Vivian finished her conversations. When the last residents left, she sagged against the wall like someone who'd been holding herself up through sheer will and had finally run out. That was awful, she said. Could have been worse. How? They could have thrown things. She laughed, but it sounded brittle. I grew up in boardrooms. I've negotiated contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I fired executives, restructured companies, survived hostile takeover attempts, and that meeting just terrified me more than any of it. Because those were your peers. This was regular people whose lives you're disrupting. Exactly. She pushed off the wall and started helping with the chairs. How did you do that? That speech about your daughter, that wasn't planned. No, but it was true. It changed the whole tone of the room. They trusted you. They trusted that I was scared too. Nobody trusts people who aren't scared of the same things they are. Vivian stopped folding chairs and looked at him. When did you get so good at understanding people? I'm not. I just know what it's like to be powerless and angry and have someone in authority tell you to trust them when you have no reason to. They finished cleaning up in silence. The building felt different at night with the community room empty, the usual ambient noise of residents coming and going replaced by an almost oppressive quiet. Through the windows, Liam could see lights in apartments above, people still awake, probably still talking about the meeting, still trying to figure out how to pack up their lives. I need a drink, Vivian said. Little early for that. It's 10 p.m. That's practically responsible. Liam checked his phone. Sarah had sent a photo of Emma asleep on her couch with a book on her chest. The message read, "Tried to stay up for you, but didn't make it. She's fine here if you need more time." I could use a drink too, he admitted. They ended up at a bar 3 blocks from the building, the kind of place with dim lighting and booths that had seen better decades. Not the sort of establishment Vivian probably frequented, but she didn't complain. She ordered whiskey neat. Liam ordered beer. To surviving the worst meeting of our lives, Vivian said, raising her glass. To surviving it so far. We've still got individual resident consultations, moving coordination, and about 50 more chances for things to go wrong. You're very reassuring. I'm realistic. There's a difference. They drank in silence for a minute. The bar was mostly empty, a few other people scattered at tables, someone playing pool in the back, a TV showing a basketball game nobody was watching. Normal people doing normal things, completely unaware that 3 blocks away, 300 families were trying to figure out how to uproot their lives. Tell me about your daughter, Vivian said suddenly. Liam looked up. What about her? Anything. You mention her constantly, but I don't actually know much about her. What's she like? He pulled out his phone and showed her the photo Sarah had sent. That's Emma. She's 7. Smarter than me, which is either good or terrifying depending on the day. Loves reading, hates math, wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up, even though she's allergic to cats. Vivian smiled. She looks like you. Poor kid. I meant the serious expression, like she's thinking about something important. She is, probably thinking about how her dad promised to be home by 8, and it's past 10. Liam put the phone away. Her mom died when she was 3. Cancer. Emma doesn't remember much about her, which kills me because Kelly was amazing, smart, funny, patient with my stupid jokes. She would have been a great mom. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He took a drink. After Kelly died, I had to figure out how to be both parents. That's why I took the job at the Meridian. Steady hours, decent benefits, management that didn't care if I had to leave early for school pickups as long as I got my work done. Turned out management didn't care about much of anything, but by then I needed the paycheck too badly to leave. So you stayed and fought to make things better. I stayed and did what I could with what I had. That's different from fighting. Vivian was quiet for a moment. I don't have kids. Never wanted them. Too much chaos, too much loss of control. But watching you with Emma, the way you make decisions around her, the way everything comes back to her, it makes sense in a way my life doesn't. Your life makes plenty of sense. CEO, successful company, probably have a view from your apartment that costs more than most people's annual salary. I have a view of buildings I own, which means I look out my window and see infrastructure problems I should have caught years ago. Very soothing. She finished her whiskey and signaled for another. Do you want to know why I was leaving that party early? The night of the elevator? Sure. Because I'd spent 3 hours watching people celebrate our company's success, talking about our growth and our profits and our expansion plans, and all I could think about was how much of that success came from cutting corners I didn't even know about. Derek wasn't the only one. There are probably dozens of people in my company making decisions like his, prioritizing short-term metrics over long-term safety, and I didn't catch it because I was too focused on the big picture to see the details that actually mattered. That's not all on you, isn't it? I built this company. I hired these people. I created a culture where someone like Derek could thrive by ignoring safety issues. At what point does ignorance stop being an excuse? Liam didn't have a good answer for that. He thought about all the times he'd wanted to blame management for the building's problems, all the frustration he'd directed at people who probably had their own explanations and justifications for the decisions they'd made. I don't know, he said finally, but I know you're trying to fix it now. That counts for something. Does it? Or am I just trying to assuage my guilt by throwing money at a problem I should have prevented? Can it be both? That got a tired smile from her. You're surprisingly philosophical for a maintenance tech. You're surprisingly hard on yourself for a CEO. Someone has to be. Her second whiskey arrived. She stared at it without drinking. I keep thinking about that moment in the elevator, when the lights went out and I realized I was trapped. I've spent my entire adult life building systems of control, business strategies, organizational structures, ways to manage risk and predict outcomes. And in that moment, none of it mattered. I couldn't negotiate my way out. I couldn't strategize or plan or delegate. I was just scared and helpless and completely dependent on someone I'd never met. But you got out. Because you came. But what if you hadn't? What if you'd followed procedures and waited for the fire department? What if you'd decided it wasn't worth the risk? Then the fire department would have gotten you out 20 minutes later and you would have been uncomfortable but fine. Would I? Because Patricia's report says that elevator's ventilation system was barely functional. 20 more minutes without air circulation, the temperature rising, my claustrophobia getting worse. I don't know if I would have stayed coherent that long. Liam had thought about that too. He'd run the numbers in his head, calculated oxygen depletion rates and temperature curves, wondered how close the timing had really been. But that's not what happened. You did stay coherent. You followed instructions. You climbed a ladder in the dark. You made it out. Give yourself some credit. I panicked. Everyone panics. You just didn't let it stop you from doing what needed to be done. Vivian looked at him. really looked at him in a way that made Liam suddenly aware of how close they were sitting in the booth. "You're good at this." "At what?" "Saying the right thing, making people feel capable even when they're terrified." "I'm just telling you what I saw. You were scared, but you weren't helpless. There's a difference." She held his gaze for another moment, then looked away. "I should let you go home to Emma. She's asleep at the neighbors. Sarah's got her." "Still, it's late, and tomorrow's going to be hard. I know, you keep saying that, because it keeps being true." They paid and walked back toward the building together. The streets were quieter now, most shops closed, only a few cars passing by. Their breath made clouds in the cold air. January in the city always felt like the year was still deciding whether to commit or give up. "Can I ask you something?" Vivian said as they walked. "Why did you really come into that shaft? Not the official reason, not the answer you gave at the resident meeting, the real reason." Liam thought about it. "Because if Emma was trapped in there, I'd want someone to risk the protocols to get her out fast. And because I was tired of watching things go wrong and not being able to fix them. And because someone needed help and I could help them, and everything else seemed like an excuse not to." "That's 3 reasons. They're all true." They reached the building entrance. Marcus waved from the security desk but didn't come over, giving them space. "Thank you," Vivian said. "For tonight, for the meeting, for the drink, for all of it." "You already thanked me. Multiple times." "I know, but I mean it every time." She turned to go inside, then stopped. "Liam, that thing you said about your daughter, about why you took this job, Kelly would be proud, of how you're raising Emma, of the father you've become." Something in Liam's chest tightened. "You didn't know Kelly." "No, but I know you, and I can see what you've built for your daughter. That doesn't happen by accident." She went inside before he could respond. Liam stood on the sidewalk for a minute, processing that, then walked the 3 blocks to his apartment building. Sarah's place was on the 2nd floor. He knocked quietly, and she answered with Emma already in her arms, still mostly asleep. "How'd it go?" Sarah whispered. "About as well as a meeting where you tell people their lives are about to be disrupted can go." "So terrible." "Pretty much." He carried Emma upstairs. She stirred when he laid her in bed, opened her eyes halfway. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." "Did you fix it?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." "Okay." She was asleep again before he could say anything else. Liam sat on the edge of her bed, watching her breathe, thinking about Vivian's words. Kelly would be proud. Maybe she would. Or maybe she'd be disappointed that he'd spent 7 years in a job that kept him away from Emma more than it should have. That he'd prioritized stability over presence. That he'd let himself get so worn down by corporate indifference that he'd almost forgotten what it felt like to work with someone who actually cared. His phone buzzed. "Vivian. Made it home. Thank you again for tonight." Liam. "Stop thanking me." Vivian. "Can't. It's how I process things. Gratitude and guilt in equal measure." Liam. "Work on the guilt part. You're doing better than you think." Vivian. Says the man who's been holding a building together for 7 years with no support and no recognition. Liam. "I had recognition. Emma says thank you every time I make it home for dinner." Vivian. "She sounds like a good kid." Liam. "She is. You'd like her." There was a long pause. Then, "I'd like to meet her sometime, if that's appropriate." Liam stared at the message, trying to figure out what that meant. Professional courtesy? Personal interest? Something else entirely? He settled on, "Maybe after all this settles down." Vivian. "Fair enough. Get some sleep." Liam. "You too." He put the phone away and went to his own room, but sleep didn't come easily. His mind kept replaying the meeting, the residents' anger, Vivian's admission about guilt and control, the way she'd looked at him in the bar when he'd told her she wasn't helpless. Somewhere in the middle of all that, he fell asleep thinking about elevator shafts and trust, and the strange intimacy of saving someone's life and then having to work with them every day after. The next morning started with Emma asking when they had to move, and Liam realizing he didn't have a good answer yet. That afternoon brought a logistics meeting where they coordinated moving schedules and hotel assignments and special accommodations for residents with medical needs. That evening brought more phone calls with angry residents, confused residents, scared residents who just wanted someone to tell them it would be okay. Liam told them the truth. It would be hard, but it would be okay because the alternative was worse. Most of them seemed to accept that. Some didn't. And through all of it, Vivian was there, making decisions, answering questions, taking responsibility for things that weren't entirely her fault, but were definitely her problem now. Liam watched her navigate crisis after crisis with the same determination she'd shown climbing down that ladder in the dark, and thought maybe he was starting to understand why she'd built so many systems of control. When you'd felt truly helpless once, you did everything you could to make sure it never happened again. Even if that meant tearing down your own building and rebuilding it from scratch. The building closed on January 19th. The last residents moved out at 11 a.m., an elderly couple on the 14th floor who'd needed extra time to coordinate their medical equipment transfers. Liam helped them carry boxes down the stairs. The elevators were already offline, and watched them drive away in a moving truck that had their entire lives packed into the back. By noon, the Meridian Tower was empty. Liam stood in the lobby with Marcus, who was being reassigned to another property, and felt the strange hollowness of a building with no people in it. No footsteps overhead, no elevator bells, no voices in the hallways, just the hum of emergency systems and the echo of their own breathing. "Weird, right?" Marcus said. "Yeah." "You think they'll actually fix it? Or is this just going to be some half renovation that gets abandoned when the costs run over budget?" Liam thought about Vivian, about the way she'd spent the last 2 weeks personally overseeing every detail of the relocation, about the night she'd stayed until midnight making sure families with special needs had appropriate accommodations. "They'll fix it." "You sound sure." "I am." Marcus looked at him sideways. "You and Miss Hale seem to have gotten pretty close during all this." "We're working together, that's all." "Sure. That's why she texts you at 2 a.m. about electrical specifications." "Those were important questions." "I'm sure they were." Marcus grinned. "For what it's worth, I think it's good. You've been alone since Kelly died. Emma needs to see that her dad has a life outside of fixing broken things." It's not like that." "Okay." "I mean it. We're colleagues. She's my boss, technically." "Technically, but the way she looks at you when you're explaining something isn't very boss-like." Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. "You starting at the new building tomorrow?" "Yeah, corporate offices, downtown. Should be less exciting than this place." Marcus held out his hand. "Take care of yourself, man, and take care of her." Both of them, Adam. They shook hands, and Marcus left, his footsteps echoing through the empty lobby until the door closed and the sound cut off. Liam was alone in the building for the first time in 7 years. He walked through the floors slowly, documenting the empty spaces with his phone camera, noting things that would need attention once the renovation started. The work crews were scheduled to begin demo on Monday. 3 different contractors, all vetted personally by Vivian, all operating under strict safety protocols that Patricia had helped develop. On the 39th floor, Liam stopped at the hallway where he'd pulled Vivian out of the elevator shaft. The door to the shaft was sealed now, locked and tagged with safety warnings. Through the window at the end of the hall, he could see the city stretching out under gray January sky, cars moving along streets that didn't care that 300 families had been displaced, that a building was about to be torn apart and rebuilt, that lives had been rearranged. His phone rang. "Vivian." "Where are you?" she asked. 39, final walkthrough." "I'm on my way up." She arrived 5 minutes later, slightly out of breath from the stairs, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual suits. Liam had never seen her in casual clothes. It made her look younger, more approachable, less like a CEO and more like a person who'd just climbed 39 flights because the elevators were offline. "You didn't have to come," Liam said. "I wanted to see it. The building empty. Before the work starts." She looked around the hallway. "This is where we ended up, after." "Yeah. I remember sitting right there." She pointed to a spot on the floor near the wall, thinking I was going to throw up or pass out or both. "And you sat down next to me like it was completely normal to have just climbed down an elevator shaft." It wasn't normal. I was terrified. You didn't show it. Neither did you. Not really. You were shaking, but you were also trying to stay in control. I recognize that. Vivian walked to the window and looked out. I've been thinking about that night a lot. How many things had to go wrong to put me in that elevator? How many things had to go right for you to get me out? And how that moment changed everything. It was just one elevator failure. No, it was the moment I had to confront how badly I'd failed at the thing I thought I was best at, maintaining control. And it was the moment you proved that sometimes the right thing to do is break the rules. She turned to face him. I never thanked you properly. You've thanked me about 50 times. I thanked you for getting me out. I didn't thank you for what came after, for helping with the inspection, for standing up at that resident meeting, for spending the last month coordinating a building closure while also dealing with your own displacement, for trusting me when you had no reason to. You gave me plenty of reasons. You fired Derek, restructured the department, gave me actual authority to do my job. I did those things because they were right, not because I wanted your trust. But I'm glad I have it. She paused. How's Emma handling the move? Liam and Emma had relocated to a hotel 3 blocks from her school, a suite with a kitchenette that Emma had declared like camping, but with better beds. She's adapting, complains about the weird shower pressure and the breakfast options, but she's making it work. I'd like to meet her, properly I mean, not just as your boss checking on an employee's family situation. Why? Vivian seemed surprised by the question. Because she's important to you, and because I think anyone who's taught you to be that patient and thoughtful is probably worth knowing. She's 7. She taught me patience by testing every limit I have. Even better, Vivian smiled. What are you doing tomorrow? It's Saturday. The crews don't start until Monday. You should have a day off. I was going to take Emma to the Science Museum. She's been asking about it for weeks. Can I come? Liam stared at her. You want to go to the Children's Science Museum with me and my 7-year-old daughter? Yes. Why? Because I've spent the last month in crisis mode, and I'd like to spend a day doing something normal. And because I want to meet Emma, and because... She stopped, seemed to reconsider, then continued. Because I like spending time with you, and this seems like a reasonable way to do that without making it weird. Bringing my boss to the Science Museum is definitely weird. I'm not coming as your boss. I'm coming as... She hesitated again. As someone who'd like to be your friend, if that's allowed. Liam thought about the last month, about the late-night phone calls and the coordination meetings, and the way they'd somehow developed a shorthand for communicating that didn't require full sentences. He thought about Marcus's comment about how Vivian looked at him, and about the moment in the bar when she'd held his gaze a little too long. Yeah, he said. That's allowed. The next morning, Liam stood outside the hotel lobby with Emma, who was wearing her favorite jacket, purple with stars on it, and bouncing on her toes with barely contained energy. Is your friend nice? I think so. Is she your girlfriend? No, she's just someone I work with. But you like her. How did you get so nosy? Sarah says I'm perceptive. That's different from nosy. Sarah talks too much. A car pulled up. Not a corporate car with a driver, but a regular sedan that Vivian was driving herself. She got out wearing jeans and boots and a coat that looked expensive but practical, her hair down instead of pulled back. Emma whispered, She's pretty. Be polite, Liam whispered back. Vivian walked over with a smile that looked genuinely nervous. You must be Emma. I'm Vivian. Emma studied her with those 2 serious eyes. You're the one who got stuck in the elevator. Vivian blinked, then looked at Liam. You told her? She asked where I was that night. I don't lie to her. Fair enough. Vivian crouched down to Emma's level. Yeah, that was me. Your dad saved me. He's pretty brave. I know, he fixes scary stuff all the time. Then you're lucky to have him. He's lucky to have me, too. I remind him to eat breakfast. That made Vivian laugh. A real laugh, not the polite corporate version. I bet you do. They drove to the museum, Emma chattering the entire way about her favorite exhibits and the new planetarium show, and how the dinosaur skeleton on the 3rd floor was missing a toe bone that nobody else seemed to notice. Vivian asked questions, engaged with Emma's explanations, treated her like a person instead of a child to be patronized. Liam watched them interact and felt something shift in his chest. The museum was crowded. Saturday morning always was. But they managed to navigate through the exhibits without losing each other. Emma dragged them to the physics section first, where she demonstrated her understanding of pendulums by nearly knocking over a display. Then the biology section, where she informed Vivian that the human body was basically a meat robot controlled by electrical signals, which was technically accurate but delivered with such casual confidence that Vivian couldn't stop smiling. In the planetarium, during a show about the solar system, Emma fell asleep against Liam's shoulder. Vivian leaned over and whispered, "She's wonderful. She's exhausting." Those aren't mutually exclusive. After the show, they got lunch in the museum cafe. Emma woke up enough to demand chicken nuggets and then spent 20 minutes arranging them into geometric patterns instead of eating them. "So," Emma said, looking at Vivian with that direct stare that always made Liam nervous, "are you going to date my dad?" Liam choked on his coffee. Vivian's eyes went wide. "Emma," Liam said when he could breathe again, you can't just... Sarah says you should date someone. She says you're too lonely. Sarah needs to mind her own business. She also says Ms. Vivian looks at you like you're interesting, which means she might like you." Vivian had gone slightly red, but she was also trying not to laugh. "Sarah sounds very observant." "She is. So do you, like him." "Emma, stop," Liam said, mortified. But Vivian looked at Emma seriously, the way you'd look at an adult asking a legitimate question. "I think your dad is smart and brave and good at his job. I like working with him, and I like spending time with him outside of work too. Does that answer your question?" Emma considered this. "But do you want to kiss him?" "Okay, we're done here." Liam stood up. "Emma, eat your nuggets. We're leaving in 5 minutes." Emma giggled, which meant she'd asked exactly the question she'd meant to ask and gotten exactly the reaction she'd wanted. 7 years old and already skilled at making adults uncomfortable. They spent another hour in the museum, then drove back to the hotel. Emma fell asleep in the back seat, tired from running around all morning. Vivian pulled into the hotel parking lot and turned off the car, but neither of them moved to get out. "I'm sorry about that," Liam said quietly. "She's been asking about whether I'm dating anyone. I didn't think she'd just ask me directly. I think it's refreshing. Most adults spend months dancing around questions like that. Most adults have better social filters." "Maybe, but she's right, Sarah's right. You should date someone." "I don't have time to date. Between work and Emma and everything else, you have time. You just don't make it a priority." Vivian looked at him. "Can I ask you something? And you can tell me to mind my own business if you want." "Okay." "When was the last time you did something just for yourself? Not for Emma, not for work, not because someone needed you, just because you wanted to." Liam thought about it. Couldn't come up with an answer. "That's what I thought," Vivian said gently. "You take care of everyone else. Who takes care of you?" "I'm fine." "You're functional. That's not the same as fine." They sat in silence for a minute. In the back seat, Emma stirred but didn't wake. "I don't know how to do this," Liam said finally. "The last person I dated was Kelly. We met when we were 22, got married at 25, had Emma at 26. She died when I was 29. I've spent the last 4 years learning how to be a single parent, and I'm barely managing that. I don't know how to add someone else into that equation." "What if you didn't have to add them? What if they just fit?" Liam looked at her. "Is that what you think? That you fit?" "I don't know, but I'd like to find out, if you're willing." She reached over and took his hand. "I'm not asking for promises or commitments or anything that disrupts your life with Emma. I'm just asking if you're open to the possibility that maybe this," she gestured between them, "could be something more than colleagues who text too much." Liam looked at their hands, then at Emma, sleeping in the back seat, then at Vivian's face. She looked nervous, hopeful, scared. All the things he felt too. "Yeah," he said, "I'm open to that." She smiled, and it was the most genuine expression he'd seen from her. "Good, because I've been wanting to say that for weeks and wasn't sure how. You could have just asked." "I could have, but then Emma beat me to it." They both laughed at that, quiet enough not to wake Emma. Liam walked them up to their hotel suite, carrying Emma because she was completely out. Vivian waited while he got her settled in bed, then walked him back to the door. "Thank you for today," she said. "I know it was probably weird having your boss crash your weekend plans. You weren't my boss today, you were just Vivian."
"I like that better."
"Me too."
She hesitated, then leaned up and kissed his cheek. "I'll see you Monday. The contractors are starting at 8.
"I'll be there." She left, and Liam stood in the hotel doorway for a long moment, touching his cheek where she'd kissed him and feeling like a teenager instead of a 32-year-old single father with too many responsibilities and not enough time. Monday brought the demolition crews, the noise of progress and destruction happening simultaneously. Liam spent the week coordinating with contractors, reviewing safety protocols, checking that the work matched Patricia's recommendations. Vivian was there most days too, asking questions, making decisions, occasionally just sitting in the construction trailer with coffee and looking at blueprints like she was trying to memorize them. They didn't talk about the kiss or Emma's question or the conversation in the car. They just worked, falling into the same rhythm they'd developed over the past month, except now there was an awareness between them that hadn't been there before. 3 weeks into demolition, the structural engineers found additional problems: load-bearing walls that had been compromised, foundation issues that required more extensive repairs than anticipated. The timeline extended from 6 months to 8, possibly 9. Vivian called a meeting with the displaced residents to explain, and Liam watched her take responsibility for the delays, for the extended disruption, for all of it. Some residents were understanding, others were angry. A few demanded compensation beyond what was already being provided. Vivian agreed to all of it. After the meeting, she looked exhausted. Liam found her in the construction trailer, staring at updated budget projections that had probably tripled from the original estimates. "You okay?" he asked. "This is going to cost me millions more than I planned. The board is furious. Two investors have pulled out. I might have to sell other properties to cover the overruns." "But you're still doing it." "Of course I'm still doing it. What's the alternative? Stop halfway through and tell everyone to move back into a partially renovated building that's still not safe?" "Some people would." "I'm not some people." She rubbed her eyes. "Sorry, I'm tired and stressed and taking it out on you." "You're allowed to be stressed. This is stressful." "I keep thinking about that night. In the elevator. How scared I was. How helpless I felt. And I think about all the residents who are feeling that way now. Displaced from their homes. Not knowing when they can return. Not knowing if I'm actually going to follow through on my promises. And I can't let them down." Liam sat down next to her. "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you fired Derek on the spot when you found out he'd been ignoring safety issues. Because you've spent the last 2 months personally overseeing every detail of this renovation instead of delegating it to someone else. Because you showed up to a children's museum on your day off just to meet my daughter. People who let other people down don't do those things." Vivian looked at him, something vulnerable in her expression. "What if the money runs out? What if I can't finish this?" "Then we figure it out, together. That's what teams do." "Is that what we are? A team?" "I think we're more than that. But yeah, we're definitely a team." She leaned against him, and they sat like that for a while, the sound of construction happening somewhere above them, the future uncertain but not quite as scary when faced together. The renovations continued through spring. Emma's school year ended, and she spent the summer splitting time between day camps and hanging out in the construction trailer with Liam, wearing a hard hat that was too big for her and asking contractors questions about load calculations and wiring diagrams. Vivian started spending more time with them, not just at work sites, but dinners after, trips to parks on weekends, movie nights in their hotel suite where Emma would fall asleep halfway through and Vivian and Liam would finish watching in comfortable silence. It wasn't dating, exactly. It was something slower, more careful, built on a foundation of trust that had started in an elevator shaft and grown through crisis and exhaustion and the slow discovery that they worked better together than apart. In July, Emma asked Vivian directly, "Are you my dad's girlfriend now?" They were at a park, Emma on the swings, Liam pushing her, Vivian sitting on a bench nearby with ice cream that was melting faster than she could eat it. Vivian looked at Liam. He looked back. They'd been avoiding that label, both of them cautious about defining something that felt important enough to not want to mess up. "Do you want me to be?" Vivian asked Emma. Emma thought about it with her usual seriousness. "Will you be nice to him?" "I'll try my best." Will you make him take breaks and eat lunch instead of just drinking coffee? Definitely. Okay, then yeah, I think you should be his girlfriend, Vivian smiled. Then I guess I am. Good. He's been happier since he met you. Even when he's tired and grumpy, he's less grumpy than before. Liam stopped pushing the swing. I'm standing right here. I know. That's why I'm telling her now. You won't argue if I say it in front of her. She was right. Liam couldn't argue with that. August brought the final phase of renovations. The major systems were done. Electrical, fire suppression, emergency lighting, ventilation. Now it was finish work, testing, certification. Patricia came back to do a final inspection, spending 3 days going through every floor, every system, every safety feature. Her report came back clean. This is how buildings should be maintained, she told Vivian and Liam in the construction trailer. Not just a code, but beyond it. You've created something safer than what was here before. The residents started moving back in September. Liam and Emma were among the first, returning to their apartment that had been repainted, refloored, updated with new fixtures and appliances they hadn't had before. Emma ran through the rooms like she was seeing them for the first time, declaring everything weird but good. That night, Liam stood in the kitchen making dinner, actual cooking, not just reheating takeout, while Emma did homework at the table and music played from a speaker he'd finally had time to set up. Through the window, he could see the city lights coming on as the sun set, the same view he'd had for 7 years, but somehow different now. His phone buzzed. Vivian. How does it feel to be home? Liam. Strange. Good. Like something ended and something else started. Vivian. That's accurate. Liam. You coming over for dinner? Vivian. Is that allowed now that I'm not actively managing a crisis? Liam. I'm making pasta. Emma wants to show you her room, and I want to see you. So yeah, it's allowed. Vivian. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 15, still in work clothes, but with her hair down, carrying a bottle of wine and looking slightly nervous like she always did when coming to their apartment. Emma launched herself at Vivian the moment she walked in, dragging her away to see the new bookshelf Liam had built. Liam finished cooking, set the table, and watched Vivian and Emma sitting on the floor of Emma's room, discussing the optimal arrangement of stuffed animals with absolute seriousness. When they finally sat down to eat, Emma asked Vivian if she was going to sleep over. Vivian nearly choked on her water. Liam said, Emma, that's not... Sarah says when people date, they sometimes have sleepovers. Are you dating? We are, Vivian said, recovering. But that doesn't mean I'm sleeping over tonight. Why not? We have a guest room now. It's got a real bed instead of hotel beds. That's very generous, but please, I want to make breakfast for someone who isn't just my dad. He only likes boring breakfast. Vivian looked at Liam, clearly trying not to laugh. Boring breakfast? Cereal, toast, sometimes eggs if I'm lucky. I make eggs, Liam protested. Scrambled, always scrambled. Vivian should have better eggs. So Vivian stayed, sleeping in the guest room while Emma made elaborate plans for pancakes in the morning. Liam lay in his own bed, listening to the familiar sounds of the building, the pipes, the footsteps overhead, the ambient noise of people living their lives, and thought about how different everything was from 8 months ago. Different job, different relationship with management, different person sleeping down the hall, different life. The next morning, Emma made pancakes that were slightly burnt but enthusiastic. Vivian ate them without complaint, drinking coffee and discussing the merits of chocolate chips versus blueberries with the same focus she brought to contract negotiations. After breakfast, Emma went to her room to get ready for school. Vivian helped Liam clean up, the two of them moving around the kitchen with the ease of people who'd learned to work together. Thank you, Vivian said, for letting me stay. For this, she gestured at the apartment, at the life Liam had built. Thank you for fixing the building, for caring enough to do it right. I had good motivation. If I'd cut corners, you would have called me on it. Probably, she smiled. I like this. Being part of your life, part of Emma's life. I know it's only been a few months and things are still new, but it feels right. Yeah, it does. Liam kissed her, soft and unhurried, tasting coffee and maple syrup, and the promise of something that didn't have to be rushed or forced or perfect. They're kissing," Emma announced from the hallway. They broke apart. Emma was grinning, clearly not actually disgusted. "You're going to be late for school," Liam said. "Worth it. I got to see Dad kissing someone. Sarah's going to be so excited. Please don't tell Sarah everything. No promises." Liam walked Emma to school while Vivian headed to her office. The morning was cool, early September, carrying the first hints of fall. Parents clustered at the school gate, the same ones who'd never talked to Liam before, still not talking to him now. He didn't mind. He had Emma. He had work that mattered. He had Vivian. He had enough. That evening, there was a building-wide celebration in the courtyard, a welcome-back party that Vivian had organized, complete with food trucks and live music and a banner that said, "Welcome home." Residents mingled, comparing notes on their apartments, discussing the renovations, slowly rebuilding the community that had been disrupted. Mr. Castellano found Liam near the food trucks. "The elevator works perfectly now, smooth as anything. My wife is very pleased." "Good to hear." "That VIP elevator, too. I heard Ms. Hale wrote it yesterday just to make sure it was safe." Liam hadn't heard that. "Did she?" "All the way to the top floor and back, multiple times. Said she needed to face it." Mr. Castellano studied Liam. "She's different now, more present. I think nearly dying changes people." "I think it does." "You're different too. Less angry, more settled." "Maybe." "No, maybe about it. Whatever's happening between you two, it's good for both of you. Don't mess it up." "I'll try not to." As the party continued, Liam found Vivian standing near the fountain, watching residents enjoy themselves, that CEO expression back on her face like she was evaluating the success of an event. "You can relax," Liam said, walking up behind her. "People are happy. The building's safe. You did good." "We did good. I couldn't have done this without you." "Sure you could have. You're stubborn enough." "Stubborn isn't the same as knowledgeable. I needed someone who actually understood these systems, who cared about the people living here, who'd tell me the truth even when it was inconvenient." She turned to face him. "I needed you." Emma ran up before Liam could respond, pulling on his hand. "Dad, they're doing fireworks in 10 minutes. Can we watch from the roof?" Liam looked at Vivian. She looked nervous but determined. "We can watch from the roof. All three of us." They took the newly renovated elevator, the VIP one that had started everything, to the top floor. Emma chattered the whole way up about fireworks and whether they'd be as good as the ones from last year that she'd only seen on video. The roof access had been updated too, new safety rails and improved lighting. A crowd had already gathered, residents and their families claiming spots with blankets and chairs. The fireworks started at 8 p.m. exactly. Emma sat between Liam and Vivian, pointing out colors and shapes, narrating each explosion with enthusiasm. Vivian's hand found Liam's, their fingers intertwining in the dark, while light burst across the sky above them. When Emma finally ran off to join other kids dancing to music someone had set up, Vivian leaned against Liam. "I was supposed to watch these fireworks from the penthouse party last year, before the elevator failed." "Seems like a lifetime ago." "It does, but also like yesterday. I can still feel what it was like to be trapped in the dark, waiting for someone to help." "You're not trapped anymore." "No, I'm not." She looked up at him. "Thank you. For everything. For that night, for these months, for letting me be part of this." "You are part of this. You have been since you climbed down that ladder, trusting me not to let you fall. I trust you with more than that now." Another burst of fireworks painted the sky in gold and red. Emma came running back, throwing herself between them, demanding they watch the finale properly. So they did, the three of them standing together while colors exploded overhead and music played and the city celebrated around them. Liam thought about December 23rd, about descending into that elevator shaft not knowing if he could actually get someone out, about the moment when Vivian had looked up at him with terrified eyes and chosen to trust him anyway. He thought about all the things that had to go wrong to create that crisis, and all the things that had to go right to survive it. He thought about broken buildings and broken systems, and the slow, expensive, difficult work of fixing what shouldn't have been broken in the first place. And he thought about the small, imperfect family standing next to him, a daughter who'd learned too young to be understanding, A woman who'd learned the hard way that control wasn't the same as safety, and himself still figuring out how to be enough for both of them. It wasn't perfect. Emma would still have mornings where she resented how much time his work took. Vivian would still have board meetings where investors questioned whether the renovation costs had been worth it. Liam would still wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes, checking his phone for emergency calls that didn't come anymore. But they'd built something real from the wreckage of that December night, something that felt like it might last. The finale exploded across the sky, cascading light that reflected off windows and made Emma gasp with delight. In that moment, with Emma's hand in his and Vivian's shoulder pressed against his, Liam felt something he hadn't felt in 4 years. Not just contentment, not just survival. Hope. The fireworks faded, the crowd began to disperse, and Emma declared she was tired and ready for bed. They rode the elevator down, all 3 of them, in the VIP car that had been completely rebuilt, every system tested and certified and safe. Emma fell asleep before they reached the lobby. Vivian and Liam walked her to their apartment, got her into bed without fully waking her. At the door, Vivian hesitated. "I should go. Let you have time with Emma. Or you could stay. Guest room's still available, and tomorrow's Saturday. We could have boring breakfast together." I thought Emma wanted better eggs. "I'll make an effort, might even attempt an omelet." Vivian smiled. "In that case, I'd better stay. Someone needs to supervise." She stayed. And the next morning, Liam made omelets that were only slightly overdone while Emma set the table and Vivian made coffee. They ate together, the 3 of them, making plans for the day that were small and ordinary and exactly what they all needed. Later, after Emma went to play at a friend's apartment, Liam and Vivian sat on the couch with more coffee, not talking, just being. "I love you," Vivian said suddenly. "I didn't plan to say that, but it's true, so I'm saying it." Liam set down his coffee carefully. "You sure? It's only been a few months." "I'm sure. I fell for you in an elevator shaft, even though I didn't realize it until later. Everything after that has just been confirmation." "I love you too. Have for a while. Wasn't sure how to say it without making things weird. Things have been weird from the start. We might as well embrace it." They kissed, slow and thorough, the kind of kiss that promised more but didn't rush. When they finally pulled apart, Vivian said, "So what happens now?" "Now we live our lives. You run your company, I maintain the building, we figure out how to make this work with Emma and jobs and everything else. It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile is." That's very philosophical for a CEO. I learned it from a maintenance tech who climbed into an elevator shaft because easy wasn't the same as right. Liam pulled her closer. Outside, the city moved through another Saturday. People living their lives in buildings that might or might not be maintained properly, facing problems that might or might not get fixed. But here, in this apartment, in this building that had been torn down and rebuilt better than before, things were good. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real and honest and built to last. And that was enough.